As your data center scales, having a rack management tool such as PodView becomes even more important. PodView provides additional enhanced features such as when an appliance is being updated to oversight of concurrent users making changes and tracking those changes within PodView. On the screen here you'll see we have our module PodView up and operational. This is the collapsed view of our pods. You'll see here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 groups or pods. And of each particular pod, it shows the number of racks that are grouped to that particular pod. In this case, we have a default pod. We color code it, and we have 4 racks within the default pod. We have a color code of green, which is our ocean pod, and it is 2 racks. And we also have the Taipei data center with 2 racks, and also TTT and different types of pods that we've created. To uncollapse each one of the pods, there is an arrow on the right-hand side just below the pencil icon where you can click on, and that will open up and uncollapse so you can see 4 racks that are part of the default pod. HPC-AI, No, OpenShift Rack, and B32. And each one of them have appliances that you can hover and take a look at. On the left-hand side, if you're looking for a specific pod, you'll see a little square icon here on the tree view, and by simply clicking on that will provide you the 2 racks that are part of that pod. So we have a hierarchy of items along the tree structure here to break down. If you want to look at the Taipei data, we simply click on the Taipei data little box here, and it will provide you with the 2 racks associated with the Taipei data. If we also click on the edit icon, which is the pencil icon, we will enter into edit mode, and from here we see one concurrent user is basically in making changes to our pod view. On the left hand side we see 2 particular SKUs that are mismatched based on the fact is the DMI in the FRU has not been updated correctly, and therefore we reflect an error message to indicate that we have a SKU mismatch. On the left-hand side here, we have a change list, and by clicking on here provides insight and tracking of all the changes we made within this specific pod. So by clicking on each one of them, you'll see here we have a delete and add options and move options. By clicking here, we simply can click and it will give us very detailed information of the changes and tracking that was done based on a pod itself. We also provide the ability within the pod view to move appliances from one rack to the other. So by doing so, we can simply go ahead and move this particular appliance over to this particular rack, and then save it, and then also go ahead and make a change. We see that the move transaction occurred, and we simply do a submit command, and you'll see here it is now showed up in a different particular rack. So in the transaction, we have now written to the database, and eventually what will happen is this particular server will be moved over permanently to this particular rack. If we wanted to go ahead here and look at perhaps there may be a need to go ahead and move a particular appliance to what we call the discovery pool. Why would we want to do this? Perhaps this particular server has lost communication to the BMC and through the agent. And by doing so, we can simply take this device, move it over to the discovery pool, and then force it to go ahead and go back into discovery. So we're simply going ahead and deleting it or deregistering it from PodView, and then going ahead and submitting it back into the pool. And you'll notice then at this point, by submitting it, it'll eventually show back up into the discovery pool. And by submitting it, we will write the transaction back to the permanent database.